as I was saying, we are going to be doing we are going to be screening this documentary. We also will have time for questions and answers with the director, Jan Hocken, who's with us today. Thank you, Jan, for being here. So I'm pleased to introduce another member of our MEPJAC team, Nada Farhad. Born in Lebanon, Nada has called Connecticut her home since 1982. And for over 42 years, she shared a life of love and purpose with her husband and children. With a background in psychology and a master's in organizational leadership, her passion has always been centered around peace building, philanthropy, and the empowerment and protection of women and children. She's been spending more time recently in Lebanon, and that's reignited her passion and her commitment to serve communities where the need is the greatest. To that end, she's currently serving as chairwoman for the Lebanese American Resistance Renaissance Partnership. She is the founder and president of the Maharel organization, president of the board of trustees for the Cave of the Arts Center, and vice president of the Lebanese Child Welfare Association. I'll turn it over to you, Nada.
Hello, everyone. Thank you, Jan. Sorry, I'm not going to turn on my video camera just to keep the video quality on a good level for everyone so they could hear us and understand what we're saying. I am currently in Paris, but I'm so excited to join you and be with you today, introducing this wonderful production that has been done by Jan Hocken. Jan Hocken was a professor emeritus of psychology at Portland State University, a clinical psychologist, a documentary filmmaker. From refugee camps, war zones, abortion clinic, and climate protests to drag bars, dairy farms, and hip-hop clubs, her documentary films focus on contested social spaces and sites of public controversy. Hocken has directed 9 feature films, including most recently the 2-part Necessity series, Oil, Water, and Climate Resistant, and Climate Justice and the Thin Green Line, Atomic Bamboozle, The False Promise of a Nuclear Renaissance, and the Palestine Exception, which the movie we will be viewing today. Her books include Pillar of Salt, Gender Memory and the Perils of Looking Back, Hard Knocks, Domestic Violence and the Psychology of Storytelling, and Psychiatry, Politics, and PTSD's Breaking Down. She is a programmer with an all-morning variety hour of KBOO community radio in Portland, Oregon, and a 2025 recipient of an award of her anti-war work through the U.S. Peace Memorial Foundation. From her academic to participatory action filmmaking, Hocken has published extensively in areas including psychoanalysis, feminist theory, the history of psychiatric diagnosis, the social dynamics of remembering, and the psychology of storytelling. Her scholarly work looks at collective forms of suffering and offers a critical lens for understanding the cultural implication of psychiatric and psychological framework. Hocken's work as a scholar and a filmmaker is guided by her commitment to social justice. Through her documentaries, Hocken takes up complex interplay of individual and collective identities in contested spaces and sites of social conflict. She uses the medium of the documentary as a form of social memory, a means of gathering up and holding fragments of history that are often marginalized, repressed, or dominized by the mainstream media and the dominant narratives. And what we are here today to see, because we also dream a different world, a world where peace prevails, where every individual is treated with dignity, and where equal opportunity is not just an ideal, but a lived reality for all. I leave you all with the one and only, our director, Jan Hocken. It's yours, Jan.
Well, thank you for that introduction. Can you hear me all right?
I can, for sure. I hope everyone can hear you.
I think it was quite an extensive introduction. I appreciate that so much, and I think it might just serve fine as some of the background to the film and how I approach documentary filmmaking as a form of social memory. Any oppressed group or marginalized group has had to struggle for its history, to hold on to its history, which is continually being overwritten, repressed, or denied by the dominant system of the society, including this one. So in the course of following activists beginning in fall of 2023, Jennifer Ruth, the other director, and I worked with the team to document the unfolding of this movement over a period of a year. And of course, the Gazans, Palestinians, including in the diaspora, have really struggled to hold on to their own history and their own narratives and their own perspectives against the dominant perspectives that pervade not only the media and our government, but academia as well. So we wanted to create a kind of social memory of that movement, but also more than just document the movement, to trace some of the dilemmas that emerged, some of the language, the terms that became very charged and overwritten by the dominant narratives that circulate in the media, to bring in a deeper appreciation and understanding of what the issues are that the activists, particularly on campuses, have been struggling to hold onto space in resisting this horrendous war against Gaza that's supported by our own government. So with that, let's start the film. It's 71 minutes, and then we'll have some discussion, as I understand it, afterwards.
Thank you, Jen.
Jan C., can you hear me?
Yeah, I can.
Okay. So pause the recording at this point, unless you're going to say something to introduce the film further.
No, thank you. I will pause it.
Okay.
Absolutely.
I don't want to discuss this.
I think a moment of silence would be in order, so why don't we take a moment of silence? Okay, thank you, everybody. Well, we did set aside some time for questions and answers to Jan Hakan, the director. So if you'd like to put them in the chat, I think I've enabled the chat. Let me try to do that. 18 new messages.
I don't think I have a question.
In the meantime, let's reflect on how sad this was. A moment of silence is not a mere of a reflection of how we felt after watching this movie.
I have one request. If you're not speaking, could you put your Zoom on mute, because sometimes you can hear background sound. Thank you.
Okay, does anybody have a question for Jan? Sophie, go ahead.
Yes, thank you so much, Jan, and Jan, the movie maker, and Jan from WILPFUS. My name is Sofiane. I am part of WILPF International Secretariat. I'm definitely touched. I've been crying behind the camera. I think many of us have been. So thank you also for allowing the space for that. I have a comment connected to a question. I am involved in a project to document repression in universities around the world as part of WILPF. And one of the things that we've seen is something you depict in the movie, that is that the violent actions when the encampments become more active, like when the encampment becomes a violent action. We say violent between quotes as the person in the movie, because of course it's not. It trespasses a border. So it creates a new moment of discourse and narrative within the universities. So I'd like to know, Jan, what do you think about this? And if you think that this is one of the lessons learned or a good tactic, and how can we how do you envision that preventing that we know how media and university authorities are going to frame the actions, but using that as an opportunity? So that's my first comment. And the second one is I would also like to hear, reflecting from history moments, and how student solidarity, student movements and unions, workers had always been at the forefronts of revolutions. How can we encourage other movements, not only the student movements, to join the encampments, to support the students, to trespass the division between solidarity movements and identity politics clustered by your belonging to an institution or a certain sector, and make sure that we all get together and accompany the students. So if you think there is a follow-up to this, so thank you so much.
Well, I'd love to have a longer conversation with you, perhaps, about the next steps, and we're now documenting some and following some of the hunger strikes on campuses, including here on the West Coast and in Oregon. As activists, student activists become boxed in to smaller and smaller spaces, more regulated by what they can say and where and when, that hunger strikes have emerged as one strategy that has its own long, rich history. But just to say a bit about your first point, we had a lot of conversations with activists, with SUPR, the Students United for Palestine Equal Rights, on our campus at Portland State, and our consultants about how to portray the occupation of the PSU library, which many people consider the library kind of a sacred space, and there was some damage to it. The occupiers, some of which are students, some not, were pushed out by the police, and then they returned, and then there was a more aggressive police operation around it, and it was not popular in this city at all. And a lot of people, even within the Palestinian justice movement, thought it was a bad strategy because it looked really bad. But we're documentarians, so it was something that made national news. So we did want to include that, but to also explain in the film the long and rich history, the noble history of occupation of buildings. It goes all the way back to the labor movement of the 1930s, the anti-war movement, including in Portland, occupied one of the major buildings on campus. And now that's praised. Those students who including the tactic of occupying a building, are now kind of seen rather nobly around the anti-war movement. So our way of handling that was not to lionize or celebrate every tactic, but to show the kind of the rich history of different tactics, and that as activists, student activists and others are ignored or blown off in their demands, that tactics do escalate, as we're seeing now with the hunger strike movement. It's not an easy tactic at all. It's a very difficult one to stay with it. But campus activists have been blocked at every turn. So we wanted to also just show the different, the rich history of movements that not only are based on college campuses, because that's a site of knowledge production, of rebellion resistance, but also repression historically. But as you point out, how much these movements depend on the larger, the labor movement, other social justice movements to support them.
Okay, thank you. We've got a couple questions in the chat. I'm going to take one of those, and then we've got a couple of hands raised too. So let me start with Laura's question from the chat. Given that student activism for Palestine has dramatically died down, do you fear that the repression has had its intended effect of scaring people into silence?
Well, we've shown this film since we completed it mid-November over 100 times, mostly for campus groups that are trying to figure out how to navigate this more. It's not a new terrain. It's continuous with Biden's policies, but clearly more aggressive, more threatening, and more legal repercussions for students, especially students who are activists or are on some kind of have a vulnerable visa status. But I see it as much more of a melancholic moment where students are struggling to figure out what to do. A repression, particularly the severe repression we've seen by the U.S. government throughout the history of this movement, in particular since fall of 2023, is, in some ways a very desperate attempt to control and silence voices that are quite audible to anyone who's listening. And so repression has its cost. A more secure state has ways of managing and allowing space for academic freedom, for this kind of discussion and speaking out on a genocide. But I've encouraged students to see repression, including political repression, as a kind of dynamic process. It's hard to unlearn what you've learned, even though you don't always know what to do with it. It has shifted globally in the US, clearly among young people, but the public at large, and how they view Israel. And the mask has fallen from a lot of the face of Israel as this beacon of enlightenment in the Middle East, as a democratic state, and all of that rhetoric. We're seeing the brutal reality behind it.
Thank you, Jen. Hanan, you had your hand raised. Would you like to pose your question?
I don't have question actually.
Hi.
Hello, Jan. Hello, Odile, and everybody.
Hello.
Hello, my dears. Missing you a lot. Well, I would like to pay tribute to such a work. It's really very, very important and very distinguished. What is special in this movie is the points, that comes in between the lines and between the explanation. In the movie, you touch the history and you touch the reality and you touch the important point of the students and the demonstration and the reaction of the government and all the oppression they faced. And it was really, during the genocide, one of the most important activities that attracted all the Palestinian people, and we view it with high admiration. I must say, while I am here now in Jerusalem, facing the realities, watching the genocide, even it is more difficult and more crimes, heinous crimes against the Palestinian people. Israeli enter today and try to kill and try to occupy all Gaza. What you give is very symbolic act, which is really very important. And this movie should be distributed to many organizations, to many people and individuals that they have to watch. I live with you with every minute and with every photo and with all what the friends, the people who you interviewed said. Each word is very valuable. And overall, you suggested very beautiful way. Palestine from the river to the sea, which is the dream. It is, of course, very difficult and impossible, but in the struggle of the Palestinian people, it is possible. I think it's a very difficult situation. Even half or small piece of land we are not given now. But with your help, with your support and solidarity, and all the free people of the world, we will continue on our struggle until we achieve victory and independence to live safe as any other people of the world. I'm sure you followed up the question of the children. The 18,000 children were killed, and 2 days ago, a doctor, she has 9 kids. They all killed under her eyes by missile bombed their house. This is one of the many stories. It should be even shown and described through another movies for the women, for peace and freedom. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Hanan.
Thank you.
We're
Hello,
going to turn to Jean McCracken. Jean has a question or like to hear comments about Project Esther. Jan, if you would like to comment on Project Esther, please.
Yeah, can I first respond to Hanan's points? And
Yes, of course.
it means a lot to me and others on the team to hear that the film has been meaningful in capturing so much history that gets buried under the rubble of discourse about what's happening in Palestine. And I want to invite you to reach out, or others to reach out to us through the website, PalestineExceptionFilm.com. There's a screening page you can fill out, and we support anyone who is interested in having a group screening. We have been signed on to Watermelon Pictures, which distributes some beautifully produced films
very beautiful.
focused on Palestine that you might be aware of. That will be video on demand, probably starting in the fall. But our whole approach after finishing a film is to have it seen in groups like we're doing today through WILP, to have discussion afterwards, because people will sometimes watch something on their phone or on their computer while they're eating dinner or whatever, and to have to think of the film as a kind of holding space, to hold hope, joy, sadness, all of the intense emotions that most of us feel, and to think about how to move forward. So if there's a way we can show the film, Hanan, where you are, through your group there in Jerusalem, we would really love to make it as available as possible.
Yes, I will check and write to you. I think what you did is a very, very good job. And we as writers and intellectuals trying to stand opposite to the gun. So what we publish, what we write, I think it's another kind of struggle for freedom and independence. Thank you again on behalf of the Palestinian people.
Thank you. Thank you. So the Esther Project, I'm sure a number of you are familiar with that. And it's, as I've understood from what I've read, it's mostly Christian Zionists, very right-wing Zionists in this country that are primarily part of the evangelical right, and where Israel's part of a kind of theological perverse view of where Israel fits in their vision of Christianity. But it's also very much lays out a strategy for repressing dissent in general, gender studies, Black, Chicano, studies that come out of the social movements that represent gains in social movements, all of the knowledge production that came out of social movements that has been part of the richness of academia. Why I came into academia, out of the women's movement because it was becoming a more vital place, even though these are still minority programs. If you look at the funding of universities that the Trump administration is going after, a very small amount of grants and university funding goes to these programs that are so heavily targeted, the so-called woke programs. Most of it goes to engineering, business, the physical sciences, and departments that are not particularly involved in this, this or other social movements on campus. So there's a kind of perverse irony to that. But Project Esther is something to follow because they also use, of course, like AIPAC, the historical trauma of the Holocaust. We tried to show in the film how much that the Holocaust studies and the trauma of the Jewish people in relation to the Holocaust is being exploited to cover, to grant a kind of eternal immunity from allegations that Israel is engaged in any kind of apartheid, genocide, or ethnic cleansing. So I think that's something to follow, but there are many Jewish organizations who are critical of Project Esther, who do not sign on to that, do not sign on to the equation of criticism of Israel and anti-Semitism. I think that has become thinner and thinner as an argument over time as we see the reality of how Israel and the US government is weaponizing anti-Semitism.
Okay, thank you, Jan. Okay, Odile, you brought up the hunger strike, and any thoughts on that, Jan, or any comments about it? Who you might know who's involved in it?
Yeah,
Anything about it at all?
there was a Democracy Now! Piece that from the other day that mentioned the University of Oregon hunger strikers, as well as a number of campuses in California. Yale had a hunger strike that then they ended. CUNY is now organizing some hunger strikes. They're very difficult. It's a real difficult strategy. It has a long history, including among Palestinian prisoners who use the hunger strike as a tool of resistance. And so we've been doing some short pieces for social media for campuses, and that's part of how I work with my participatory action methods. Is in the course of producing a long form piece like what you saw, we produce short pieces like a minute up to 1 to 5 minutes for groups who are wanting to put out things on social media rather than waiting a whole year. So we have, so we're doing that now and covering the hunger strikes. I was there at a rally last Friday at University of Oregon. And they've been very creative in coordinating across dozens of campuses, talking about how to have, for example, a buddy system where two hunger strikers, they check in on each other, enlisting medical personnel in the area to monitor their health. They're not intending to die, become martyrs, but they are being very thoughtful and strategic and have tremendous moral clarity about the importance of continuing to keep what's happening, including this horrifying phase of an imposed famine on people of Gaza, trying to keep it in the public eye. It's kind of like violence, or the so-called violence of the encampments, when you have an occupied building, the cameras are there from the press. Similarly with the hunger strike, the media don't pay attention until someone's hospitalized or until it's become a higher level of risk. So the students are really struggling with how to manage that. because they're not intending to die, but they are, you know, in a very literal way, using their bodies to convey something and experientially identify something of what it means not to have food for days. And the administrations can't arrest you or expel you or stop you from graduating, hold up your transcript for not eating. So it is a powerful tactic, but it's a really hard one. And so I'm interested in how activists are navigating this very difficult terrain we're in now.
Yeah, okay. Thanks, Odile, for the question, and Jan for filling us in. Ellie, you had your hand up. Would you like to unmute and go ahead? You're muted.
Thank you. Does Shalihi of Stockholm, does she prefer to go first? Yeah.
Hi, my name is
I know
Shiley.
the picture of the baby, the child, so I always deference to.
No worries. My name is Shiley. I'm an intern with the WILPFUS branch, and I'm a student at Duke University currently. We haven't had encampments quite like the ones that you showed in the film. But in the lens of the film, are you concerned, or what's your sort of perspective on the restrictions imposed by the administration on higher education and like the situation at Harvard, for example?
Mhm.
Well, the during the Biden, I mean, there's both something much more sobering, scary, and awful about what's happening during the with the Trump team, Trump regime coming into power, because they are much more aggressive and using the Justice Department in a very and clamping down on universities across the map, including here at Portland State University. But it's so apparent. And initially, even at our university, the president was not happy with this film. You know, I'm on the faculty, Jennifer Ruth's on the faculty, and she let us know through her people she did not like what we were doing. And now she's shifted. She knows there's not a way of negotiating your way out with this regime. I mean, just the cross the board repressiveness is quite clear. It has nothing to do with protecting Jewish students. There's a whole other right-wing agenda. So under, you know, the Biden administration, I think there was more of a sense of there's room to maneuver around what we saw in the film unfolding last year, which was bad enough in terms of the repression, students groups being either suspended or expelled from campus, students being disciplined, and now it's much worse. But out of that, I think there's a sense of unity, and you know, it's not going to come from administrations that are still most responsive to their board of trustees and their major funders, but among students, faculty, faculty and staff for Justice in Palestine, or chapters all over the country that have grown in size. It's very important for faculty who have more seniority, like Jennifer Ruth and me, to stand up and support students, to also, I think, educate on what for many outside observers can seem confusing terms like from the river to the sea, different traditions of Zionism, student intifada. These are charged terms that get defined by the press in ways that deny voice to Palestinians or for activists. So I think it's a different time now, but I think a lot more has been exposed that has strengthened the resolve of many students, even though they're not out in massive numbers in encampments, certainly, or on the streets at this point.
Okay, thank
Yeah.
you. Ellie, did you want to go ahead and then
Yeah,
we've got
because it
Jerry,
follows
David,
what,
Lisa.
thank
Go
you.
ahead.
It follows what Jan, my comments follow. First of all, I'm Ellie Omani. I've been an activist for years. I last year joined WILF. My friend was urging me, and I'm very, very happy that I've been to 2 wonderful presentations that you all give, and so educational, so critical. Thank you. So that's my first point. The second one, I live in, well, I'm East Coast, West Coast. My legal home is still back on the East Coast in Westchester. And I was part of an organization that was led by a Palestinian woman, Westpac, Westchester Coalition for Peace and Justice. And I'm now living in Claremont, California, because that's where my daughter and 2 grandsons are. And the points about, I don't want to distract from the student concentration and focus of today's meeting. But because I'm an activist, I also go to the Claremont Friday Hands Down movement. And that's a very important movement. And it's hard, though. It's made me sad. Only me and maybe 2 others have the kafia. We have our Palestinian signs, Stop the Genocide, Ceasefire Now. And the US consciousness outside of the universities is obviously very low. And we know why. It's because the mass media has lied and lied and lied and overlied and kept people so ignorant. And so social media, and now there are restrictions on that. There are certain videos that I want to show the reality in Gaza and the repression against the movement here. And it'll say, oh, your video can't be shown right now. And you have to be very persistent. And, you know, I'm not one of the younger students that knows all the tricks of how to get around the censors. But what I really would like to, when Jan spoke of the Trump administration, we've got to help also the non-student population understand. And so, okay, so a few of us wear the kafia, we have the signs, but I work with PSL, Party for Socialism and Liberation. It has been a leading factor along with the Palestinians in bringing this whole issue. They're located primarily, I mean, we're all over the country, but the leadership is in the New York City area, and you know how massive those demonstrations have been. And so the hope that it's not only a hope, it's what Jan is saying, that even under this very repressive administration, we are slowly gaining and teaching the others who are silent, you know, and you can criticize people, silence is complicity. But what we need is two things, I think. One, not criticize them for their ignorance, because it's not ignorance brought upon. It's being pushed by the Trump admin and the billionaires, and everybody is happy in America, go buy, buy, buy. You all know this if you're on your phones, how much the distractions, you can't do anything without being assaulted, literally psychologically assaulted with advertisements. So we have to hit at, I think, the mass media, write the letters, write protest letters, letters to the editor of the big things, even though we know they're already in the bag of the Trump administration. But we can't stop there. And the second thing is, I'm sorry, going back to the question of the university. So I'm saying tie the hands down movement, which are liberal, white.
Hands off
yeah.
movement?
Pardon?
Hands off movement?
Oh, did I? Yes. Do you know about it?
Yeah, Ellie, we've got 3 more people that have questions, so I'd like to move to one of them now, if that's okay.
It's nationwide, it's with hands off, just to be clear. Hopefully everybody knows about those and indivisible.
Yes, it's part of Indivisible. Yes, all across the country.
Okay.
Yes,
All right.
very good.
All right.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Jan, and I do
Yeah.
appreciate that. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Jerry, I think you were next, and then we have David and Anita. You're on mute, Jerry.
Here we go. First of all, I want to applaud the many ways that this whole crowd is searching to apply humane and responsible knowledge and action. I want to mention something that I feel is neglected in this. In a way, our opposition feels like they have us in a box with the kind of accusations and the lawfare that's being aimed even at nonprofit organizations. The U.S. and Israel together in Latin America have carried out genocide, have carried out massive assassinations, and really stunning realities that many of us who were active in the Central America Solidarity movement will remember. To me, this is a really powerful lever to pry us out of the box that our opposition feels like they have us in, because in Guatemala, it was the U.S. And I went on a delegation to Guatemala and heard this directly from a top human rights attorney there. It was the U.S. and Israeli military hand in hand in genocide. Now, this is not just some accident, and the fact of a dress rehearsal in Guatemala, a prequel to what we're seeing now, I think sheds important light as to who is using whom and what has been going on, and how we have every reason to cry out against the horrors that are being imposed against our fellow human beings, and this just total attack on human rights and law, international law. Well, I won't go on, but I know many of you recognize where this is coming from. So thank you so much for the film.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much, Jerry. I don't know, you're frozen right at the moment. We've got 2 more hands up, and then we have 2 more presenters I want to hear from. David, if you would take yourself off mute and go ahead. Not sure about David. So Anita, would you please take yourself off mute and go ahead?
Thank you. In listening to the discussion about the fasting, the hunger fasting, I would have urged the young people to take a dive into Dick Gregory's history from the Vietnam era. I just did a quick Google search, and they said he fasted 40 days. He actually fasted over 160 days against the Vietnam War, and subsequently he became like a health guru beyond that experience. But I think they would glean a lot from reading his history. And my main message within all of this is that we all need to guard our personal archives and libraries, you know, and all those articles that you had set aside and thought, oh, I'm never going to get around to sharing them. But I'm glad I have a file cabinet with a bunch of stuff, you know, because it's very important in this era. So I didn't really have a question, but I really thought that if the young people are getting around to attempting the hunger fast, they might learn a lot from what has gone on before.
Okay, thank you, Anita. Well, next I'm going to call on Debbie Livingston. So if you want to go ahead and take yourself off mute, Debbie, and get your video up if you'd like to. So you may remember when you registered that we had no charge. but then we also had an option of contributions, and the contributions will be split between WILPFUS to enable us to do programs like this, but also to the Middle East Children's Association or Children's Alliance. So Debbie, I invited Debbie here to talk about that. Debbie is the chair of the Tucson WILF branch. She's an active member in the peace community in that city. And one of their actions is to call for a ceasefire and to end the occupation as part of their Raging Granny group, where they bring that message through song. The other thing that they do today is this annual fundraiser for Mecca. And so Debbie, I'd like to turn it over to you to talk about that or anything else you want to talk about today.
Hi, everybody. Glad to be here. I'm glad I got to see this film again. We did show it in Tucson, and I think that's where Jan saw it. And I'm so glad that so many people have attended here today. The Tucson branch, yes, we are active for over 16 years. We've put on fundraisers for this organization that Jan spoke about, the Middle East Children's Alliance. And they do so much in the Middle East to help with feeding people and getting clean water and helping with psychological support for women and children. I was trying to put the website in the chat. It's meccaforpeace.org, and I'll add it to the chat when I'm done speaking. They're just so active, and the things that they do to help all over the Middle East, and especially in Gaza. And with what's going on now, it's so important to be able to get whatever aid we can get into the area. But I'm so thankful to Jan, both Jans, for showing this film today. And I'm glad that there's so many activists that are taking part in all these actions that are coming up. The King's Day on the 13th of June, with this terrible military parade. We just have to speak out and keep speaking out and getting more awareness to the atrocities that are going on. So thanks again for giving me a chance to speak, Jan. Take care, everybody.
Yes, thanks. Thank you for being here, Debbie. Appreciate it. Well, David, you've got your hand up. Can you, are you unmuted now? So do you want to go ahead with your comment?
Maybe he's stepped away from his phone or computer. David, are you there?
I'm going to introduce our next speaker then. You did meet her already because she did comment already, but Sophie Antonelli is with our secretariat, and I'm happy to have her as the next speaker if you're ready to speak. She is a queer migrant activist living in the Netherlands and currently working as a membership coordinator for WILF International Secretariat. And she collaborates with several initiatives and collectives in solidarity with Palestinian liberation. They have been supporting Documenting Resistance and Repression Project as part of their work. So Sophie, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Jan. Thank you so much, and thanks for having me here. More than a speaker, I wanted to take the opportunity to share that we're organizing this webinar next week. I'm based in the Netherlands, in Amsterdam, and as an activist, I also was involved in the encampments in the University of Van Amsterdam, the UvA. And immediately after the encampments that took place in the Netherlands, Janek Slachter, who is the general representative of the Americas within WILF, and is also a member of WILPFUS, reached out and was concerned about what she was seeing in the US. I was shocked by what I experienced in Amsterdam, here in my city. And we connected. Jan wrote an article and we connected, and we decided to start this initiative, which is being run by different members of WILF. I am part of the International Secretariat, but it's also run by volunteers and members of different sections. It started with another member from WILF Spain. And 2 other staff from WILPFUS. And since then, it's been 1 year. We've been conducting interviews with students around the world. So far, we have people from the University of Amsterdam and the US. We have a few, but many of the volunteers withdraw because of repercussions and because of, fear of some of them were migrants, and you know the situation more than myself. So 1 year after, next Wednesday, actually in 1 week, we are going to host a webinar of 1 hour. It's not going to be an open webinar. It's only with registration and approval to exchange tactics. So basically to learn and to create WILF added value is that we are globally, not only we are old, we are 110 years, but also we are distributed around the world. And we wanted to take that added value to create bridges and to establish bridges with different movements, and in this case, students' movements. So also as part of our commitment within the organization of intergenerationality, we think it's crucial to listen to students, to listen to young activists, to young voices, and to create bridges and coordinate and exchange tactics. So I just wanted to invite you. So thank you, Jan, for giving me this space. I shared with Jan already the details, but I can also share the registration link here. And it's mostly to listen and to share. So we will give in the space to students and to students in Palestine, in the West Bank, to also for them to give an update of the situation on the ground and to strengthen the movement, give each other hope and continue. So thank you so much for the space, Jan.
Yeah, thank you, Sophie. If you would please put the registration link in the chat, that would be great. I did show your flyer. It's beautiful, but I didn't see, it just said, you know, you have to click on it. So it'd be better if you just put it in the chat there. Well, we're getting close to wrapping up, and so I want to turn it back over to Nada to see what she'd like to share before we wrap up our time together, and also give Jan another chance to sign off. So go ahead, Nada.
Yes, I want to say I am at everybody's experiences. The movie, I cried. I cried the first time I've watched it. I cried the second time. I cried today. We can continue doing what we are doing. This is what we do best. We talk about it. We listen, we share, and we do what we are doing. This is our job. We would not let that be in the way, anything in the way. We, wherever we are in the world, as Sophie said, WILF is all over. Either look for a chapter near you or contact us and join the movement, join WILF. The Middle East Peace and Justice Action Committee and WILPFUS is happy to discuss and talk and invite who are very interested to a meeting, to join our meeting and listen and join the conversation. We were happy to have Hanan with us today. And it's always good to hear it from the grassroots, from what's happening. It just takes us to where all the horrific stuff are happening. I'm gonna leave it to Jan Haken to finish and to take us to the and until more videos and more documentaries from you, Jan, we're looking for the next showing, for the next viewing, for the next documentary. We're all waiting, listening, and sharing. Thank you.
Well, thank you. It's been such a pleasure and an honor to be. I think this is the first WILP screening we've had of our over 100 screenings, and I've been a supporter of WILP, including our chapter here in Portland, for many years. It's over a century of proud anti-war social justice work, and there's a lot of wisdom in that rich history and the ongoing members. And so I would love to have another WILP screening or support. Use the film in whatever way you see could be helpful in advancing the specific justice for Palestine movement and the larger anti-war and social justice aims of WILPF. And so I'd also encourage people to go to the website. There's information and background on the film, PalestineExceptionFilm.com. As I said, we're really looking to continue at least through the summer having community screenings as well as campus screenings, and we've had some theatrical screenings and at festivals. But I see this documentary, I see my documentary work as a form of culture work, and to hold on to memories, but also the collective memory, but also to learn from our history and to draw lessons from this and the movements that many of the activists are drawing on as they continue this struggle. So thank you again for having me and for organizing it. And I look forward to continuing to talk with any of you who are interested in another project. We could also connect. There's more work to be done, including in documenting the challenges that we all face in our fight for justice for Palestine, but also for a kind of vision of that a better world is possible and necessary.
Absolutely. Thank you, Jen.
Yes, thank you, Jen. I want to just close with some comments here. We know we're here together today, and while we're here together, the IDF is bombing constantly, 200 per day on most days, and they're using starvation and the lack of humanitarian aid as weapons of war. So as members of the global community that values peace and justice and freedom and human rights, among all the other actions that I'm sure you all have planned for the rest of the week or for the near future here, I just want to point out that let's also call on our members of Congress to support New Hampshire Senator Peter Walsh's Resolution 224. So that's SR 224, which calls for an emergency delivery of humanitarian aid to Gaza. The House is putting one together under the leadership of Jayapal and Raskin. So you can write to them also, and again, ask them to support SR 224. And with that, we'll close today. And again, thank you everybody for being here today.